Now my poem, Moving Line. Started mornings where we stopped the night before, shoved wool-stockinged feet into cold boots, mittenfuls of cold corn mush into warm mouths, clipped boots to skis, hoisted packs to backs, eager to bear them, and strode off into each bright white morning of sunlit snow. 6 weeks, single file, 490 miles across Colorado. The skis of 3 men tracing a line never before drawn.
The plan was to ski across Colorado. We were sort of willing to take the position that there wasn't somebody else telling us the correct way to do this, that we were putting it together ourselves. How do you sleep? How do you eat? How do you move? What's on your feet? What's your hat like? We weren't doing anything by the book. There was no book. And so when you say that we were the first to ski across the state, it may be so that that's the case. But to me, that seemed like that's what life was about. One should go on these journeys in the wild lands. One has to kind of get metaphorical to be able to describe these kinds of experiences. The very act that one's story, when I look backward, is marked onto the land behind me. I felt like we were the artist on the canvas the moment you've left that mark in the snow. At the time, I may not have understood that this journey was not just a journey, but my entire life's journey. And it became both the expression of and an experience of my life working. I'm a kinetic artist, which means I think that expression is not materiality, not stuff, but the way that it moves. The reality is defined by the motion itself. This notion of being out in nature as a moving element. And what I realized on the Colorado trip was what's important is not who you are. It's how you move.
When I was growing up in Boulder, I got my first skis when I was 10 years old. In the late 1940s, Boulder made its own ski area up on the mesas here, west of Chautauqua. It was a very primitive ski area, but it was a start for all of us. And then I learned about cross-country Nordic skis. They're narrower and have a different kind of binding. But back in those days, we couldn't get any of those skis. So we bought downhill skis from the Army surplus store, and we used a bandsaw to slice strips off the sides of the skis to make them narrower and lighter. Once I started cross-country skiing, I became fascinated by polar exploration. I was especially captivated by Fridtjof Nansen crossing Greenland in 1888 to 1889. No high tech, no support, just him and 5 other guys crossing all of Greenland on skis. And so he became my signature hero for expeditionary skiing.
When I got to Boulder, I wanted to ski. I had heard about this guy saying he's going to lead a ski tour up in the mountains and meet at this parking lot. And I just showed up at that, and there was Alex. And we just went boom.
By the late 60s, John was already a ski buddy. And then in the early 70s, we skied the length of Yellowstone National Park. It was our first serious expedition, and it was a well-researched, well-planned, well-executed expedition. So once I was thinking in terms of expeditionary skiing, I wanted to do something big, like ski across Colorado.
And so several years after the Yellowstone trip, this cross Colorado plan came up, and then Alex and I basically planned that trip, and Peter.
Peter was a very likable, well-educated fellow. The three of us got along absolutely wonderfully. He was on our first Yellowstone expedition in 1973, and I admired the fact that he was an extremely competent backcountry skier.
Peter was great. He was a great person in my life.
When was the last time you heard from Peter?
45 years ago. Basically, never again after the expedition. Where he is now, I have no idea.
My parents got me on skis at a very young age. I was 6 years old. And like Alex, I learned at a very kind of primitive type of ski hill. Moved to Colorado, and that's where I met John. And John was the one that got me turned on to Nordic skiing. And we used to go out and do day stuff outside of Boulder. John and Alex came to me with the idea of the trip, and I don't think I hesitated for too long. I just wanted to experience what that was like for being out there that deep for that long.
There was a lot of work prior to the trip that was needed. It took almost a full year of planning the route. We did some summer scouting. Some very critical spots needed to be looked at in the summertime to see if they were safe. The Colorado Mountain Trails Foundation had given us a grant that helped us finance the trip because they were very interested in our project, because they wanted to know what our route was going to be. And then after extensive route planning and research, we decided that we would ski across Colorado from near Durango in southwestern Colorado to the Medicine Bow Range of far northern Colorado.
And so once Peter joined and we had figured out what the route was, I think we decided, yeah, we can ski across Colorado. Let's do it.
Starting in the San Juan Alps, hot lava rock hardened by 80 million winters of deep snow, through Silverton's snow-packed streets, up to the treeless mesas 12,000 feet high that cap the Rio Grande's headwaters, mesas shaped like anvils for summer lightning to hammer sparks on, drop to quaint Creed, crouched in the shadow of cliffs that once echoed pistol assassinations, wound along the Cochetopa Hills to Monarch Pass, where spring melt flows west to the Colorado and east to the Arkansas, climbed through the Sawatch among high peaks breasting into the sky, through the high elk range to fabled Aspen from on high, and down to streets streaked with spring mud, climbed through the chain of Carter Lakes, breath held under tipping slopes, flanked rearward of the mountain bearing a holy cross, chain gang down a stream bed, turning fast from snow to water, climbed a spiked gore range with lashing winds, then skied down perfect slopes of snow, climbed north from Keystone through the Williams Fork and Vasquez ranges, touched down at Fraser, clipped off 20 miles to Monarch Lake, hove lakeside to Grand Lake, then north through the national park that was backside to our own homes, crossed the Continental Divide the seventh and last time, round the headwaters of the Poudre, and finally Medicine Bow, close by Wyoming, where our track ended and the plowed road began. Our motto was, all we need to do is eat, sleep, and travel. So going light became the theme of the trip. The signature motivation for the expedition was to have lightweight packs. Our packs for Yellowstone were about 45 pounds. The packs skiing across Colorado were under 20 pounds. We decided as a group to switch from wooden skis to fiberglass skis just because they were a little bit less breakable. John was a complete master at the sewing machine, and he sewed us a lightweight tent that required no poles. We could just set it up with skis. We had avalanche beacons and avalanche shovels for avalanche rescue. We also decided we would not carry a stove and gas cartridges, that we would cook over just an open fire. That meant we would only cook in the evening. We would have cold breakfasts and just wake it up in the morning, have a few snacks, and take off skiing.
And so we were planning and testing out foods, and there were all kinds of things about how can you fit this in a pack.
And Alex had the idea for having the food so we didn't have to carry it on our backs.
Part of going light was to use cache buckets for our food supply. We put stuff in buckets and buried them in the snow at various sites. The caches had food as well as more ski wax, 35 millimeter film, and the quadrangle map for the next section of the trip.
I remember having some reading material, and I'd cut the book up, and just in the next cache I would have more pages to read. So there was always something to look forward to in the new cache.
And we had stickers made to put on the bucket saying, if you should happen to find this cache, please do not disturb it in any way. Lives depend on it. Thanks and backcountry greetings. It took us a whole week to drop off the caches. We started driving from Boulder to Grand Lake and then south through the state, depositing 19 cache buckets.
And we put all these things in on the way down to Durango. We spent maybe 2 days in Durango doing things, and then we departed on the trip.
It was March 15th, 1978. That was key, because you still had good snow that you could ski on, and you had the warmth of spring.
Our very first day out, we climbed 3,000 feet up to a very high ridge, and a very strong blizzard started lashing us. The wind whips up the snow during a blizzard, and so the visibility can go down to absolute zero.
To not fall over, you have to look at your feet as you're walking with wind, and it's like being in outer space or something.
We didn't have a GPS device, but when that happened, we knew from our navigating on the map exactly where we were, and we could take a compass bearing and just follow the compass.
The idea was to work with the weather, and then beyond that, suffer it, because there's no turning back.
If you're outside 24/7 for weeks at a time, your body gets so used to it, you never feel cold.
But for the most part, we had some really nice, beautiful Colorado bluebird days.
The wind isn't blowing all the time. And after it's been blowing and it stops, it's serene.
wove our track through places wild and far, remote in summer, forgotten in winter. In perfect silence, our raven shadows, 3 in a line, darkened the snow for brief gliding instants.
The classic day was pulling this huge climb up the side of some horrific ridge and getting up to that little pass that was up at the top. Now I'm sitting on a roller coaster ride that goes into my future as far as I can see.
We were moving along this general course, but there was a freedom about it, kind of to waver from that course. Where do you camp? Where do you go up in the plateau? What's your line?
Everything is being adjusted at all times, the way you behave, what you're thinking. In no way was it about getting to the end. It was really about the co-creation between you and the natural. We were creating this art project, and it was a magnificent artwork.
There's a sense of accomplishment, a sense of paying close attention to what you're doing, the satisfaction that what you try to do works. And then, of course, there were mishaps. We all got giardia on the second day out from Creed by drinking from a stream that probably in the summer was polluted by cattle.
That was a bad day. And at that point, giardia had just become known by people. Before that, you could take your metal Sierra cup and just dip in the creek and just drink right out of the creek without any problems.
We had very lightweight boots with a different kind of binding, donated by a company in Minnesota, but the boots were not strong enough and the soles started to peel off, and we had to tape our boots together to keep them going. By the time we got to Aspen, we had to discontinue using that kind of boot, and John's wife Sally brought our own ski boots to us in Aspen.
I can remember driving over to Aspen to see John, and he'd lost all this weight. He'd been ill, and he just looked like he'd gone into like asceticism or something. And so it wasn't the best connection between he and I, because it was almost like he couldn't see me because he was so used to looking at some far horizon.
She saw that right away, like I was always just looking beyond her. If you're in a snowfield, there's nothing talking to you. Unless an individual rock shows up, you need to suddenly see it. But my eyesight is looking at the whole field to learn what's going on in all of it.
Drew our line forward 12 miles a day, 3 moving specks in a vast white. A scale of things we liked and sought, arms and shoulders taut to the task, like ropes hoisting sails. Those sails, our lungs, blown full by clean mountain air that made us feel like ships floating in the sky. By day 38, we got to the Vail Pass Highway and went where we had buried a cache bucket. That was one of 2 episodes on the trip where our cache was gone and we had no extra food.
That was the day I really wanted to quit so many times. John and Alex kept, encouraging me a little bit more, and they were very patient.
In this food cycle where literally I don't know if I can climb that next hill without eating, the very effort to keep moving seemed enormous.
The only option was to keep skiing. We were in such good shape by then, so we weren't panicked.
It wasn't pleasant, that's all.
But you keep coming back to the rhythm of skiing and that glide. And that's all you're doing is gliding, breathing. You're off in your head, of course, just like meditating. And there's a transcendence about it. You know, you feel like you're really out there. But you felt like you were more integrated with it. I had never felt like that in my life. And the deeper I go back into wilderness, the deeper I feel that.
This love of the land and the mountains and nature and snow and sky is some kind of human experience. My experience was being an active agent in something that is creating itself as you participate in it. And on this journey, we were the active artist, creational element.
I think that art is a form of exploration, and exploration, especially through untracked wilderness terrain, is definitely a form of creativity. There are lots of different ways of enjoying the outdoors and becoming inspired by the outdoors to be creative. And that's where we got the idea of a moving line. The skis are not just metaphorically, but literally drawing a line on the snow. The line was both real and imagined. There was beauty in that thought. There was also historical significance in that thought. I like making contact with nature and finding words to describe that. The idea of the moving line was definitely a poetic inspiration for me. So poetry became the central creative part of my life. That's really sustained me in my old age.
I think there's this feeling of looking back at these lines drawn on the land as kind of proof that I existed, or that it, more than that, that it was good. And the line is somehow enlivening me now, even. It's still part of this wonderful life.
A line that fades to nothing in the spring, yet stays forever as a shining light in the memories of those who made it. The trip took us 6 weeks. Our total altitude gain was 65,000 feet. Our total miles, 490. And the whole time from Durango to Chambers Lake, we saw 0 people. Not one single person in the backcountry. We finished on May 3rd, 1978. We hitched a ride and got to Fort Collins. I can so clearly remember seeing lilacs in bloom and just pulling the lilac blossoms into my face. That was a glorious experience. So in that sense, it was time for the trip to be over.
But there wasn't any sense of relief. Boy, I'm glad this is done with. Like John Muir used to say, going off into nature is like going home. And after so many days and weeks being in that space, it felt very much like home.
The goal was to do this crossing of the state, that was a worthwhile thing to do in a human life. But I'm wondering whether there was a sense of accomplishment. You know, because lots of people have crossed the state. We're not the first people to cross the state in all kinds of ways of traveling. So did I ever do anything new? I did something wonderful, though. I know it was wonderful.
It was very satisfying to have accomplished the trip, but I became extremely busy in the years following the expedition. I can't remember how much I stayed in touch with John and his wife Sally, but Peter just faded out of the picture for me.
I'm not a person who tends to keep in touch with people. You know, over the years, that's just not my personality. I'm kind of a loner type.
Hi, John. Nice to see you. Yeah.
Good to see
yeah,
you.
good to see you. It's going to be pretty exciting to see Peter after 45 years. I am so curious. You ready?
I guess.
Oh, here he comes. I see him with the cap.
Hey there. You look vaguely familiar, you people.
Yay, Peter!
Yeah, how we doing?
It's worth it. Did you
Do you have fond memories of skiing across Colorado, Peter?
I do very much so, and I appreciate you two inviting me on that trip. I mean, that was huge.
I can say it was one of the highlights of my life. I have nothing but wonderful memories of the trip.
I think it was the toughest thing I've ever done, and probably the best thing I've ever done. But on a level, you keep wanting to go back too and get more of it.
I felt like my life was utterly changed by that trip,
Yeah.
even to the point of being a different person. I think there's something else in us, in our consciousness, that loves the empty space. And this is very similar to the artistic mind. You are in creation and therefore are the creator at the same time. There's an expression that has been used throughout my life by those of us who go into nature. The expression is that either you can't or it's hard to bring it back with you. That there's this experience you get into out there that feels so total and so immersive and so completely right. How do you bring it back?
Yeah.
How do you bring it back? The answer is that this creative self that is the same self that's there, that's out there, brings it back by being itself. You just keep on creating.
There's things still moving, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's still moving.
We're part of history.
Like it or not.
Like it or not, right? I now consider it not only just a memory, but a permanent piece of art.